Hello class, welcome to our lesson today about adding and subtracting fractions and mixed numbers. There's a few different ways of solving these pieces, so hopefully you'll find a strategy that works for you. I do have some suggestions about which one may be faster, but you can kind of pick and choose at different times which one is best. Often students don't like fractions as much because they have less experience, and honestly calculators don't work as easily with them. So you want to make sure that you understand what you're looking at. Remember that you should be taking some notes as you're going through and be ready to use those on, say, your homework and or assessment pieces. I also thought, since it's so warm outside, that I would keep the summer vibes going with my awesome Hawaiian shirt that's, of course, orange for the Orioles. So hopefully that's what everyone should be wearing, I think, some orange Orioles shirts. Anyways, let's get back to the topic of fractions and adding and subtracting. Okay, the first examples that we're going to be looking at are all going to have at least common denominators, which for fractions is the key aspect of it that you have to make sure when you put them together. So they have to be similar. The idea is kind of like types of money. If you go to a different country, you have to exchange your money for that currency of that country. Fractions are kind of similar to that. You have to make sure that they are similar in the denominator in order to combine them together. So for this 5/8 and 1/8, you combine the numerators together, so combine the tops, and then keep the denominator the same. Okay, don't add the denominators up. That'll actually make your number smaller, which doesn't make a lot of sense. And then I made a note, make sure you always simplify. Okay, make sure your final answer for like Canvas quizzes or homework checks, make sure you simplify that as you're looking at those scenarios. The next example, I'm going to try to put two ways of solving a lot of these. I prefer one over the other, and we can kind of explain why here in a moment. But many of you have been taught when you solve a question like this to make everything improper. So the first method makes everything improper. And then you add the numerators together, keep the denominator the same. And then the improper answer in this case would be 31/3. Sometimes that might be an okay answer. If you see on Canvas it says leave as an improper fraction, that's the answer, 31/3. Or you might have to make that a mixed number of 10 and 1/3. I tend to do the second option though, and it's basically just adding pieces together. So what you'll notice is 7 and 2 together make 9, and then 2/3 and 2/3 make 4/3. So I added the whole numbers together, added the fractions together, and then I get 9 and 4/3. That should throw up a red flag though, because 4/3 is improper. You have to make 4/3 into basically 1 1/3. So this piece right here with 4/3 needs to become 1 1/3. And what happens is instead of 9, it becomes 10 and the leftover 1/3. I think this second way makes a lot more sense long term because it keeps things compartmentalized. Much like, again, going back to the money idea, when you're dealing with money, what you want to look at is the dollars and cents. So the first method is really taking all of your money, making it all pennies, and then putting it back together and making dollars out of it. The second method says, well, just add the dollars up, and then if you end up with too much of the change, we'll make another dollar. Okay, so that's why I tend to prefer the second option, but it's kind of up to you which one you pick. I think the second one will save you time though. So if you're trying to save time, I think the second option might be the way to go. The next one is another idea just with subtraction. So the first method says, okay, make everything improper, subtract, and then combine combine them together and then make it a mixed number. The second one does the same idea as decimal borrowing, just with a fraction. So in this case, I could just subtract, and then 4 minus 1 is 3, but then you'll notice 2 minus the 7 won't work very well. And so for this question, I need to borrow from the whole number. So think about decimals. When you borrow, you take one from this group and add 10 to the other group, because that's the place value. Well, in this place value, a whole 1 would be, in this case, 9/9. So that's why I added 9, so it was 2/9. And now instead of 4 and 2/9, it's 3 and 11/9. And then subtract 3 minus 1 is 2, 11 minus 7 is 4, and you get the right answer. My recommendation on these scenarios is to try that out. When you're going through these examples, going through your homework, it's going to save you time if you can figure out how to do the second method. So I'm going to try to showcase that on each question as we go through it, but make sure you're working on that for this lesson. Okay, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but not every fraction has a common denominator. So you're going to have to find a common denominator. You got to make things similar so you can add them together. Please, whatever you do, don't just add the numerators and denominators and tell me that's the answer. If it was that simple, we would have learned it in, I don't know, second grade. Okay, not today. All right, so make sure of that as you're looking at some of these situations. For the improper fractions or mixed numbers or regular fractions to combine the terms together, you got to make sure a common denominator. So here the common denominator was 35. I multiplied the first by 5 and the second stuff by 7. Combine it together. Improper fraction answer, mixed number fraction answer. So it depends on how the question is being worded. Okay, the second one. It's 1/6 and 1/3, so the common denominator would be 6. So you don't need to multiply the first by anything, but you do have to multiply the second one. And that would be 10/3 becomes 26 if you look at this step right here. So 10/3 becomes 26. Combine them together, mix number, and simplify. Now, even if it was improper, you want to make sure that you simplify it still. So this 33/6 would still simplify down to 11/2 if you divide them by 3. That works. That's the first method. The second method, okay, takes everything and makes it just compartmentalized. So 2 plus 3 is 5. But then I had to make 1/6 and 1/3. These two pieces right here, 1/6 and 1/3 into the same denominator. So that's 1/6, and I made 1/3 into 2/6. And I just add the whole numbers up. 2 plus 3 is 5. 1/6 plus 2/6 is 3/6. Simplify 3/6, and you get a half, and you're done. Now, typically students learn method 1 when you're in elementary school. Okay, and it's not bad. I don't want you to go back to your teacher and say, man, Mr. Rendell says that's a horrible idea. The reason we teach this is it makes it similar for multiplication. Okay, in terms of the improper piece. But you don't have to do it that way. It's kind of similar, like fractions and decimals have similar ideas. In decimals, you have to line the decimal point when you add. But in multiply, you don't. In fractions, you have certain rules that you have to follow. So that's one of them in that situation. Okay, the next one is a subtraction problem. I did it in both methods. So I'm not going to spend too much time on method 1. It's make improper, common denominator, find the answer. So if you look at that top example, that's what you're looking at there. In the second example, I think because that's more new for a lot of you, you'll notice here that this is just 8 and 3/12 because it was 1/4. I just found a common denominator of 4 and 12. And then you subtract those pieces out to find the answer. The problem is 3 minus 7 is a negative, and that's a problem. We're going to be looking more at negatives in the next couple weeks. I hope you're excited about that. But when we're dealing with this question, we have to do that borrowing technique again. So borrow 1 from the 8, that makes it 7. And then take 12/12 in because the denominator was 12. So 3 plus the 12 would be 15. 7 minus nothing is 7. 15 minus 7 is 8/12. And by golly, we get the same answer, 7 and 2/3. So when you're looking at these situations, try to work on both methods. There is a downfall to the first method, though. I think we'll see it here soon. Okay, the next question is what I like to call a kind of trick question. It's 7 plus 3/8. And if I found a common denominator, 7/1, make a note to yourself. Any whole number that's ever been written can be written as a fraction. It's that number divided by 1. Okay, so 7 is 7/1. You could add them together, you get 7 and 3/8. Well, of course you get 7 and 3/8. It's 7 plus 3/8, which is 7 and 3/8. That's like saying, take $1.25. What do you have? $1.25. So it makes sense in this case that you have 7 and then plus the 3/8. Okay, the next one. Here's the downfall of the improper fraction method. The reason that it worked well in elementary school and in previous classes is because you didn't have very high numbers in terms of denominators. Well, you're going to start getting higher and higher numbers. So if you look here, we have 9 and 4/15. It's going to take you a really long time to figure out what 9 and 4/15 is as an improper fraction. And then make 2 and 4/5 into an improper and make it out of 15. Instead, why not leave them as mixed numbers? 9 and 2 make 11, and then 4/15, and you'll notice I made it 12/15 because 4/5 times 3/3. 4/5 times 3/3, and then that's 11 and 16/15, and 16/15 is too big, so you add one more into the whole, and you're done. And that's going to save you a lot of time. And if your issue is time, like on a testing situation, you need to find strategies that make it go faster for you. And this idea of the second version will make it go a little bit faster for you. So keep that in mind as you're looking at those situations. But please make sure that you're looking at these in the correct way and working on that borrowing and the borrowing techniques for the fractions, especially questions like this one. You might want to have a few of those written down as you're looking at your homework. That might make it go a little bit faster for you. Okay, the next one is just 8 minus 5/6. So the first method makes everything improper. It will work. The second method just says, it's 8 minus 5/6. So really, think of it like you have 8 pizzas. I've got 8 full pizzas and I ate 5/6 of one of them. I should still have 7 full pizzas. Okay, I've still got 7, so I borrowed one from the 8 and made it 7. But then of that last pizza that's in 6 slices, I ate 5 of them and I'm left with 1/6. So it's just taking like eight pizzas, or you could use dollars, okay, whatever method makes sense to you, okay, and use that to help find your solution. And that covers everything for adding and subtracting fractions. Please make sure you try method 2. It's going to save you a lot of time. Not that I've been known to give a difficult denominator that makes sure that method 2 would work better, but maybe I have. So keep that in mind as you're looking at these questions. Make sure you answer those adding and subtracting fraction questions. Be ready to discuss them, because I'm guessing we're going to have some issues on some of those scenarios when we meet for the next class period. Have a good day, everybody.